Hello again. Today we're going to tell you all about our trip to the Phillip Island Wildlife Park, which was a pretty amazing place actually.
It was. We pulled up and didn't think it was going to be amazing because it looked super ghetto from the outside. So if you ever find yourself there and feel like you're just in a gravel parking lot in front of someone's house, you might be in the right place.
Yeah, it actually looked pretty small from the outside, and there were only a few cars in the parking lot, which actually ended up to our advantage because there weren't a whole lot of people there, so we almost had the place to ourselves.
Yeah.
So it was a crazy place with just a ton of different animals, most of which weren't in any kind of enclosure. They're just kind of there and wandering around. They give you a bag of food when you come in, and then you get to walk around and essentially feed that food to all the animals. And so we just saw and interacted with a ton of different kinds of crazy creatures. To start, we walked in and there are some wallabies jumping around. Which
I thought were kangaroos at the time, but apparently they're not.
Yeah, because the kangaroos are big and then the wallabies are actually really little. So, we just kind of walked up and there they were, and they jumped up to us and we fed them, and they were nice little creatures.
It's slightly surreal, just walking out and then something just bouncing over to you that looks like a kangaroo. I was like, what the heck? There is a kangaroo right in front of me. So weird.
Yeah, and you can feed them and pat them right out of your hand. And then, so what do we see next?
I don't know. Did we walk over and see the bats after that?
Yeah, the bats.
The
bats
were
were awesome
and disgusting. And
those were in an enclosure though. We couldn't really interact with them, but they were huge bats.
They were nasty. They're crawling along the ground.
That was the weird one.
It freaked me out. The skin for their wings thing was stretchy and
Yeah, they were pretty terrifying.
It was gross. I did not like them.
Right.
What did we do?
I thought they were awesome. And then what did we do? So then we started walking over to the kangaroo area, which was by far the best part of the park. It was this big wooded area, actually. So, the park is acres and acres and acres. So rather than looking anything like a zoo, you just walk into this this creepy dead forest kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a free range area or something, but you walk through a tiny little gate, and then all of a sudden it's just open wooded area, and the trees are not like trees we have here, so it looks very different. Some of them looked kind of deadish. I don't know if they actually were dead or if that's just what they looked like, but you kind of walk through them, and then suddenly you look and you realize that the woods are full of kangaroos. It's kind of hard to see them because they kind of blend in with the background, but all of a sudden you just realize you're surrounded by kangaroos, and it's very strange.
Yeah, they were freaking everywhere.
Yeah.
And there's not a trainer on hand. It's just us in a forest with a bunch of hungry kangaroos.
And we have food.
Right. And so when they see you and smell you, they know what that means. So they all just hop right up. And these aren't little kangaroos. They're as tall as I am when they're standing up.
Right.
Nearly.
Yeah,
kangaroos.
they're probably to your shoulder when they're standing up tall. They're about to your waist when they're just kind of hunched over.
And so suddenly we're surrounded by these guys. And they're not shy at all. When you hold out your hand with the food in it, they immediately grab your hand with their clawy little
they have claws.
Hands.
Serious
and
claws.
then just take it in, and then they slobber all over your hand.
Yeah, it's weird. You can kind of feel their teeth scraping against your hand. It's a little bit scary.
And then they immediately want more, and then the other ones are like, why did you feed him? Where's mine?
Yeah, they kind of surround you, and it's a little bit terrifying. It was more scary after the fact when, did you say one of the guys at work told you that at the regular zoo, they don't let you do that because the guy's they can kick you until you die.
Right. He said they'd let you, but he has to be there on hand. That's where the trainer comes in, and he's on hand and saying, don't get too close and feed them like this. And we were just given a bunch of kangaroos and some food.
Right, so it seemed there
maybe
maybe should have been more boundaries than there were.
On their feet, they have that big giant claw.
Yeah, and just their regular hands have scary claws, so it was weird. But I think the first kangaroo we saw was a little bit scary just because we had seen the little wallabies that I thought were kangaroos, so I thought they were maybe this big. And then we saw our first big one, and I was like, that's a little scary, it's kind of huge. And it jumped over to us.
At that point you're okay, here goes.
It's the size of a regular person, just jumping over to you. And then we're okay, we're gonna feed this thing. And then we fed it a little bit, and then we decided we were done and we wanted to move on and go see other kangaroos. But it wasn't done, and it just kept following us. And Like, we gotta get away.
Kangaroo stalker.
I know, it was a little bit scary, so we just started going really fast.
But then we just found a whole giant group that did that to us.
Right, yeah. And there's like points where I was like backed into trees, like
Kelley was terrified. I honestly thought the entire thing was fantastic. It was the best thing we've done since we've been.
I think it was really fun. It was just a little bit scary. So I was glad when we left the kangaroo forest and moved on.
And speaking of scared, like, I was fine with the kangaroos, but the freaking emu, I'm not fine with those things. Because I don't know about them. They have like this big sharp beak and they're huge birds, and this one emu just like came and wouldn't leave me alone, and I kept like backing up and like throwing food on the ground, trying to touch it.
Were you taking photos of it? Is that what you were doing?
I was just trying to get past it.
Oh.
Maybe I guess I thought.
I don't know,
maybe
but
I'd take a photo
somehow
or
it saw you and decided that it wanted all of the food.
It saw my bag, like I had the bag, and it was under my arm. That's right, because I was taking a picture, and it was like going for it, like right here, and I was like, yeah. It was scary.
I thought I was recording that instance, like from the beginning to the end, and then I looked at my camera and realized it wasn't recording. I was very, very sad.
So there's no footage of Josh being beaten up by a
I think I have a little bit towards
bird.
the end, but that was really funny.
Eventually I got away from the emu, and all was well.
Yeah. Then we saw, what were those little weird roly-poly things with spikes? It had a weird foot.
Was it an echidna or something like that?
Maybe an echidna. That was weird.
Yeah, it was almost like porcupine-ish, but...
Yeah, it was like a porcupine mixed with an anteater.
Yeah, because it had the long nose, and like you said, it had that weird foot that just like scratched its side.
It was really gross.
Didn't you say the feet look backwards or something?
Yeah,
like that?
when they walk, their feet are like going the wrong way. I did not like that animal.
And we also saw a big giant wombat, which I guess it was a normal sized wombat, but it was like this huge, weird creature.
Yeah, that Josh tried to feed, and I was like, hey Josh, that's in like an enclosure of some kind, which probably means you're not supposed to feed it because it could bite you. And then I went inside and like looked, and it was like, don't feed the wombats, they will bite you. So it was a good thing that thing
It wasn't remotely interested.
It wouldn't eat from your hand, so that's good.
He looked friendly. What else did we see? We saw a whole bunch of weird birds. So they were like big hawk, eagle type birds, and there were little weird birds.
There was a kookaburra bird, which made me sing that song.
Bird.
That kookaburra's
There was
gum tree song.
There were a ton of reptiles. That was one of my favorite parts. So there was like a reptile house where you walk in, and there are like all these lizards running around all over each other, and they're really big. I remember you thought it was like a snake with feet. It was so weird.
Because it looked like they were all kind of connected. It was weird.
Then we saw a bunch of snakes in there. What else did we see in there? A
There was
monitor was like the huge one, and I saw some of those outside too. They were just these, giant lizard things.
What was that one lizard that looked like the lizard from Rescuers Down Under?
I forget what that was called.
I don't know, but it looked
really
just like it.
Right.
So weird.
And it had an Australian accent when we talked to it.
Yeah, totally. And it liked to eat eggs, just like in that movie. What else did we see? We saw koala bears, but they were sleepy.
Right. The koalas, since they're nocturnal, I guess, they were just kind of up in the trees and sleeping.
Yeah.
And just one of them was staring at us through his sleepy eyes. Hey. They wouldn't let us feed and touch those. I was disappointed.
Yeah, you were.
I was like, where can we hold a koala bear? And they're like, in a different state.
And you're like, oh, okay, never mind. That was funny. But I think that was about it, wasn't it? I mean, we saw some different kinds of kangaroos. Like, we saw some red kangaroos. We saw some little things, like, in the back that I think were little kangaroos. I don't think that those were the other things that look like kangaroos.
Right, and then we saw what definitely seemed to be a couple of different species. The one that we were surrounded by was, they were really big, and they had very coarse fur.
Yeah.
And then in that other area, we saw smaller kangaroos that had like longer, bigger noses, and they were very soft.
Yeah.
And not so
I did
aggressive.
not touch them. No.
You didn't touch them?
No, I didn't want to.
They were downy soft.
Ooh. That's fancy. Maybe that's what they're using to clean their fur.
What else did we see? I think that was about it.
Yeah, I think so.
Wombats and birds and lizards and snakes and kangaroo and wallaby and koala.
Yeah, there was just that there was lots of different kinds, like the
Right.
the number of different kinds of birds, the number of different kinds of snakes and lizards and things. I mean, we saw dingoes there, but they kind of just
Dingoes,
looked like
right.
dogs,
It
which
just-
I think
it was
is
kind of
what they
sad.
are,
Like they were
kind of.
just in this enclosure, and they were dogs that never get pet or interacted with or anything like that. But I guess
No, I wanted to be like,
they're
they're
wild.
just dogs. You should just let them out. But apparently they eat babies or something.
like we can pet the kangaroos, but don't touch the dogs.
Yeah. Anyways, so I think that was
All
pretty
right,
much
that was
it.
it.
But it was super fun, and I'm glad that we did it. Are you glad that we did it?
Absolutely, it was the highlight of the trip, I think, as far as wildlife.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
really cool.
So I'm glad we got to share that with all of you guys. And we will be back with another video as soon as something else interesting happens.
Yeah, we're going to like a big crazy tree place soon, so we'll have
Oh yeah, that'll be fun.
lots of tree stuff. All right, we'll see you later.
Bye.